Welcome back. Welcome inside Game Day Winnipeg. This is your pregame show ahead of Bombers Elks that will go live Saturday night at the Madhouse on Matheson. That is IG Field. Bombers coming off a bye. It's been a while since we've seen you out there, Bonfire starters. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the live chat and all those good things. Of course, the Bombers, a win against Edmonton will secure first place in the West, which means they'll host the West Final on November 11th at IG Field. Of course, if Calgary can beat BC tonight, Friday night, that would also secure Winnipeg first place in the West. But you didn't come here for me to tell you the obvious. You came here for this young man, Chris Walby, the greatest O-lineman to ever play in the Canadian Football League, North Winnipeg's own. Bluto, how you feeling? How was your bye week? I haven't talked to you in like 2 weeks, man. It's weird. I know you're happy. I'm a little bit messed up from all that.
Well, you know, you have a different regime than I do. I mean, my regime is pretty simple, but yours is, now you're doing the Jets and all that other stuff. So you're being pulled in a million different directions. But yeah, for me, it was a nice week. Reading up on all the stuff about the Bombers and what they're going to do. And obviously with missing one of their key players going into the matchup against the Elks. Listen, this is a team, to me, Edmonton, they got nothing to lose. That's the scary part about it. They have nothing to lose. They're playing for jobs, no doubt about it. They're playing for jobs. But at this time of the year, one game doesn't make a career. So, I mean, they're going to evaluate every player, what they've done in a number of games. But they've got 6 changes since the last time they played. I think the most notable, we talked off air a little bit, with Eugene Lewis. He's back in the lineup, and it's nice to see because he has not played against the Bombers this year in both games. I think that's a big addition on that outside. And listen, you can say what you want. I think Edmonton would have been a better team had they started Tre Ford in the beginning of the year, as opposed to Taylor, Corny Dog, Cornelius, and Jarrett Doggy Doo. So I mean, you gotta go with what you gotta go. But I think this kid's got a great future. I know that when we did a game the first time the Bombers did Edmonton, and they were playing Taylor Cornelius, mm-hmm. And Chris Jones went out and said he's not playing well enough in practice to be a starter, and he's talking about Tre Ford. Yeah. As soon as Tre Ford comes in, I'm telling you what, he brings a different dynamic to that team. You talk to Richie Hall. Listen, this guy's a legit 4.4 running 40, and if anybody knows it, I can't even fall out of bed that fast. I mean, that's how fast this guy is, man. He's quick, and if you don't keep him contained, he's going to burn you. And I expect him to do whatever it takes to win this football game.
Yeah, like you say playing for jobs. Some people think maybe even Chris Jones is coaching for his job. I don't think that's the case. He will be back next season. But the reality is every player on that team also knows Chris Jones will be back next season. And like Crispy Galactic just mentioned in the live chat, what's going on, Crispy? I don't think I've seen you before. Welcome to Bonfire Sports. When you know the coach is going to be back next year, you wonder if you are, and playing for jobs makes for a dangerous team. And you mentioned Tre Ford and Geno Lewis. Like, Geno not playing against the Blue Bombers the first 2 games, I think that is a great point to mention right off the top, because for my dollar, Geno Lewis is the most athletic and dangerous receiver in the CFL. I mean that. I'm not talking about Kenny Lawler. I'm not talking about Dalton Schoen or Keon Hatcher or Dom Rhymes or whoever. I'm talking about Geno. This guy was the biggest free agent offensive player in the CFL this past offseason. Edmonton backed up the Brinks truck like they did with Kenny Lawler a year before, and they gave Geno what he deserved, and that is big-time money because he is a big-time player. And then you add Tre Ford. Like, think about this, Chris. He didn't play half the season. He's got over 600 rushing yards.
Yes.
Scale that out. This guy is a legit 1,000 on the ground, few thousand through the air. And he's a second-year player, which is effectively like a rookie in Canadian football.
Absolutely.
A U Sports quarterback, University of Waterloo. People questioning what was the competition like playing in the OUA, the Ontario University Athletics Conference. What would he be able to bring to the pro level? He's small, he's fast. Does that offset one another? He seems to have the head of a quarterback because he's composed. He's able to extend plays, make some off-schedule things happen. Winnipeg is going to have their hands full with this guy, and a team that is motivated to earn a job and finish strong despite missing the playoffs this year, we could be in store for a real battle on Saturday night.
Yeah, this is not a bingo spot by any means of the imaginations. You're talking about a guy in Tre Ford who was basically 12 of 16 the last time they played, 190 yards. He had a touchdown and an interception. But having said that, he rushed the ball 5 times for 50 yards. I just think that, and I read a comment here by Scott Westman, Ford can't go out and blow an MCL or something because he might screw up next year. He's not even thinking about that.
No.
Listen, right now, I'll tell you, Tre Ford, if he's got to run 50 times, he's going to run 50 times. Whatever it takes to win. I love the way this kid plays it. He's got what I've really been impressed with, DB, and you hit on a couple points. One is his composure. 2, he's got great speed, and he really makes defenses play honest. And 3, he's actually doing a pretty dang good job reading defenses. And that's something you don't usually get from a young quarterback. A young quarterback usually get him back there to get happy feet, and they take off and run the football. He's actually doing pretty good throwing. He's got 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, completing almost 68% of his passes. That ain't bad, man. I'm telling you right now. Kid's got a future, and I think the Bombers know you cannot walk into this game thinking it's going to be an automatic. Even though they beat Edmonton 9 straight games, they should have lost the last game. The offense did what they had to do, but, obviously 22 points up and then to blow it, they just couldn't stop. Once the Bombers get their offense attacking, the Bombers are a real good second-half team. Yep. We saw it last week against BC.
I gave Richie Hall. I gave Richie Hall my game ball after the last game because his halftime adjustments were outstanding. They shut it down.
Considering the first half, and it was Vernon Adams Jr. when we're talking BC now, he was just picking us apart. Mm-hmm. And obviously, they made the adjustment at halftime. I think they held him like 50-plus yards in the second half. They just, basically messed with Vernon's reads and everything, and they couldn't get anything done. And eventually, the Bombers, and you know what's going to happen? Zach attack. He gets going and he gets on fire with the receivers they have. Even though they're going to miss the big man, Dalton Schoen, which is a huge hit to them, leading touchdown getter in the CFL with 10 touchdowns, 1,200 yards receiving. You know what? You just don't replace that.
Nope.
Yes, they will have guys coming in and Brandon O'Leary Orange and Wolotarski's going to move. Deep. They're very deep, but there's something about the connection that Zach has with Dalton Schoen. The way this guy gets open. He's not even that super fast. But I told you this. I compared him to Ben Cahoon. Not the quickest, but smart. Sees the defense, knows where he's got to go to get open, and he's got great hands.
4-13 Elks visiting the 12-4 Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a win, and the Bombers are in first place, secured in the West Division. Let's look at how the Bombers will line up on offense with some of those changes with, as you see, Dalton Schoen out of the Blue Bombers lineup. It's a lower body injury, an ankle, and was spotted in a walking boot this week at the Blue Bombers facility. So, that could be preventative. That could be an indication that it's more serious. Of course, we know how the Blue Bombers handle things with injuries and that outlook. We won't really know until we know for sure the status of Dalton Schoen for the postseason. But was shown out, as you mentioned. Brendan O'Leary Orange steps into the X wide receiver spot. Drew Wolotarski drops to slot back. Greg McCrae will dress and take that offensive spot that is vacated by Dalton Schoen. Nick Dembski still in his regular spot. Rasheed Bailey back where he always is, and Kenny Lawler, or pardon me, Bailey moving over to the other side where Schoen normally is, and Lawler lining up at the X. I think I called O'Leary Orange the X. That's the Z. But either way, that's where Drew Wolotarski normally is. O'Leary Orange steps in, Lawler where he always is as well. Brady Oliveira, I know we want to talk about M.O.P. and some of the Blue Bombers awards. Chris, you and I touched on them in our last pregame show of who should be representing the Blue Bombers in all of the CFL award categories. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I want to move over to the defensive side of the ball for the Blue Bombers, and no changes in this group over the last number of weeks outside of Demario Houston. on the injured list, Winston Rose bumping over next to Dietrich Nichols, and of course Jamal Parker, who I think has played quite well as a second-year player in the Blue Bombers' defensive secondary. But to stop Tre Ford, to limit him, as the Blue Bombers have had trouble against mobile quarterbacks this season. Doesn't matter if they're a big body guy, that's a power runner, Chad Kelly, or Taylor Cornelius, or Dustin Crum, or more of a, as you like to call them, Chris, more of a scat back like a Tre Ford. What's key for them to focus on, or do they need to change things much to limit a quarterback that can beat you both ways?
Well, I mean, to me, it's obvious. I mean, your ends really have a lot of pressure. And I'm talking about Jackson and Jeff Cohen and Willie Jefferson. They've got to keep him in the pocket. This is a guy that, as you say, because of his great athletic ability, will extend plays with his legs. He'll take off. And listen, let's not overlook they have one of the best running backs in CFL in Kevin Brown. Over, he's got 1,100 yards, 6.1 yard average. He seems to be getting stronger and stronger as the year goes. This is the last game, too, for him. So you know what? You're not worried about banging yourself up. You're not worried about getting hurt because you're going and leaving it all on the field because basically it's garbage day the next day. You're filling up your equipment in the garbage bags and you're having your wind-up dinner and you're going to be watching what happens with the rest of the season and the rest of the teams. So I think it's really imperative that Jefferson or Theodric Hansen or Jeff Code, whoever they put at that end spot, man, you just got to make sure you follow and keep him in because if he gets to the outside, and this is the double whammy, DB.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets to the outside, he's going to do something. If you spread those ends out, he can take off up the middle. Now, do they spy him? Do you spy him? There's a question. Do you put Adam Bighill on him? Do you put Kyrie Wilson on him? What do you do? So that's an interesting thing, and that'll be interesting to watch that little game of chess that's going on with the defense against Tre Ford. It's a bit of it's a gamble. It's a risk versus reward. You take Adam and he comes tight to the line. There's a hole behind him in that middle linebacker spot. So, yeah, just because of the way that Tre Ford plays, it opens up a whole new dynamic in this offense. Listen, Edmonton's 4-12 or whatever they are. They're not that bad of a team. They've played horrible, but I think they're a better team with the guys we've mentioned, with Lewis, with Ford, with Brown. And we're not even talking about the other side. Mm-hmm. And they've got a pretty good group over there in Kyron Moore, who was with Saskatchewan last year. He's the leading receiver for him right now. And then obviously Dylan Mitchell had a huge game against the Bombers last time they played. So, yeah, they've got some weapons, buddy. It's just on defense they're going to have to really shut down the Bomber offense because I think when Zach and Brady and I think that, the move I'm going to talk about right now is Drew Wolodarski is very similar to me of a Dalton Schoen. They both have the same kind of speed. They're both open. They know how to catch the ball extremely well. I think Wolodarski is going to be my guy tomorrow. Is going to have a huge game.
Yeah,
I just think it. I think Wolodarski is going to be a huge game for him. He's going to get a couple touchdowns, a lot of catches, 6 catches, 2 touchdowns. There you go.
So I highlighted Manny Arsenault here on the Edmonton Elks offensive depth chart. And the reason I do that is, yes, Dylan Mitchell, Kieran Moore, the man they call Swerve, Gino, we talked about. Gavin Cobb, the University of Manitoba product, the Winnipegger, has been very good. A lot of chemistry between the Canadians, Gavin Cobb and Tre Ford. Cobb is fast, athletic player, really athletic player, great agility. But the reason I highlight Manny Arsenault is, no, he's not as dangerous, the big body red zone possession receiver he has been in years past, but he is smart. And I think his greatest asset is his blocking ability. You have Kevin Brown, who is a 1,000-yard rusher going one direction. You have Tre Ford, who would be a well over 1,000-yard rusher had he played the whole season this year, going the other direction. And you got Manny Arsenault as a guy that can block, seal the edge, make some, even be a bit of a misdirection or a dupe because they think they're going to be running behind Manny Arsenault a lot. They can bring in Green to line up at tight end. We know the Blue Bombers like to do that. Lots of things Edmonton can do offensively.
Your mic went out, DB.
Oh, man. Have I been muted this whole time?
No, Gracious. Just now, just for 10 seconds, man.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was just saying, how the Edmonton Elks handle the dual threat of Tre Ford will be interesting. Fans have been clamoring for the spy the quarterback. We saw Cam Judge do it against Dustin Crum. We've seen Cam Judge of the Calgary Stampeders do it against Chad Kelly as well. It's not really what Winnipeg has done or does do, I would say, but as they say, necessity is the birth of invention. So maybe it's something Winnipeg needs to explore.
Well, I also think the other thing too, when you're talking about the Bomber defense, is they got to stay in their lanes. It's very imperative they stay in the right, basically their rush lanes. If you get knocked out and create any kind of hole, this guy's going to make you pay for it. So, whether it's a blitz through the A gap, which is between the guard and the center, or the B gap, which is the guard and the tackle, you got to make sure you stay in there and plug that hole, or else he's going to just take that. He's going to take that opportunity to go up, take a step back, and go forward. You're going to see a lot of quarterback draw anyway. Yeah. There's going to be at least 4 or 5 times he's going to do quarterback draw. He's going to try and keep that defense honest. I also think Edmonton is going to try and throw the ball deep right off the bat. Stretch that defense, make them go back, make them respect the speed they have. Because like you said, you talked about Geno Lewis. His ability to adjust to the ball in the air and his hands are incredible. His catches, the one-handers by the sidelines. He just makes it look so easy, and he's just very, very talented. And I agree with you about your little your anecdote on Manny Arsenal. He is a hell of a blocker downfield. You know what? He doesn't have a touchdown this year, so maybe tomorrow. He's probably at the end of his rainbow too, right? I wouldn't think that Manny's probably going to have many more years. Maybe this is the last one. So go out on a winning note. You know what I mean? It's going to be very interesting.
Let's take a look at that hat you got, Chris, because I know you spent 2 weekends ago with your alma mater down at Dickinson State. Yeah. Blue Hawk football alumni. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's Dickinson State. NEI went to school. It's a great football program out there. They've won the conference a number of years. They have a tougher time when they go to Iowa, I guess because a lot more private schools down there in the playoffs. But, yeah, they're good. And I tell you what, they treat you just like royalty. We had 1,000 people in our tailgate party. There was, I think, 20-plus people from the late 70s, early 80s there. So I know it's aging us a bit. But, boy, I tell you what. We were just treated like gold, and that's how they should do it. And it just makes you feel really good to go back. And we will be back. We're going in 2025. It's the 100th anniversary of the university, so we're going back in 2025. So hopefully, if we're still doing this, DB, at that time, I'll have to take that week off, brother.
Yeah, or we can do a road trip. We'll do the show from there.
Yeah, I tell you, they love it, man. They're football. It's like in the States. We play hockey. They play football. You go out and you watch all the cars. They got little baby cleats everywhere, where we have little baby skates. So it's crazy, man.
That's cool.
Yeah, they all have baby cleats, so it's really cool. Yeah,
that's cool. Great to see everybody in the live chat. Everybody watching live on YouTube and Facebook. Maybe you're watching on Twitter. Head over to YouTube. Hit that thumbs up. Go do it right now. We appreciate that. And don't forget to join us live post-game coverage here on Bonfire Sports. As always, just a few minutes after the game, the man, Zach Schnitzy will join me for Game Day After Dark, and of course always available on your podcast app as well. Zach Collaros gets the start. Now, it's important to note that Mike O'Shea mentioned today, Chris, on Friday, that Winnipeg may adjust who they play and how much they play based on
BC's.
Yeah, BC plays tonight, Friday night. And if they lose, Winnipeg really has, in regards to the standings, Winnipeg has nothing to play for if that happens. It's a magic number of 1. 1 Bombers win, 1 BC loss. This is BC's final game of the regular season. They have a bye next week. Winnipeg travels to Calgary to take on the Stamps. So, should Zach Collaros be playing 4 quarters of football if they don't technically need him to? Should we see some more Drew Brown? Or do you get wary of that, Chris, because you have a game next week? Maybe he rests that game, and then you have a bye, presumably, if Winnipeg captures first in the West, the first week of the playoffs. Rest and rest.
Ring the bell, your intuition. Ring the bell, DB. Ring the bell. That's the intuition bell, because you're 100% right. First off, come on, brother. You know that if BC loses tonight, if they lose today, they're playing Vernon Adams Jr., who had the wonky knee. Mm-hmm. You know they want to win this game. They want to put pressure on the Bombers to play their player. That was what Coach Rick Campbell said, the head coach of BC said. We want to win, so Winnipeg has to play their starters. That's the number one reason. Now, if BC loses, I wouldn't even play Zach. I might play him a quarter. I'd play Drew Brown. Remember, Drew Brown played the first game against these Elks, threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdown passes. That was his coming out game where we were enshrining him, saying he's going to be a starter next year. So, yeah. No, I just think that it's going to be a very interesting game. Isn't it? BC's playing where? In Calgary or in Calgary? Or
BC
home?
Is home.
Okay,
BC
that's a tough place to win.
Yeah.
Okay,
it is a tough
place
to
that's
win.
a tough game.
And you know what? It's funny.
But
This is BC's final game of the regular season. Their first game of the regular season, they put the boots to the Stampeders week 1 at BC Place. BC has everything to play for, right? They need to win. So it'll be tough for Calgary to do that. That said, Jake Mayer looked like elevated Calgary Stampeders quarterbacks of years gone by, the way he was able to mount a comeback in a huge victory in week 19.
Well, you know what? I got Beglington back too, a great receiver. But I'll tell you what, I remember we watched Jake Mayer, and I thought this kid's the next coming. He's going to be a great quarterback, and he's a good quarterback.
Up and down.
But he loves this little shallow passing game. He never goes deep hardly at all.
Is that by
design? Plays everything in a little. And why his number? You look at his numbers. His numbers are good because he's got these, high percentage throws he's making. I think he's got to go stretch the defense if they're going to have a chance to win. But BC, as you know, has a pretty good secondary. They're not bad back there, buddy. I mean, TJ Lee, Gary Peters, they got a pretty good team. I think it's going to be. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to Lake. I am going to watch that game because I'm curious to see how BC plays. And the fact they're playing Vernon Adams. And he couldn't come back in the game last week, but Dane Evans did a great job. Dane Evans went and played 4 for 4. He led him to the victory. But having said that, I don't think Vernon Adams plays if it's not worth anything, right? But again, it's to that point. You want to start your starters. They want to win the game. They're not making any bones about it. They want 13. They want 13 victories. And think about it: 13 victories, and they might end up in second place. Yeah. It's crazy. That West Division is tough, but these are the top teams. You got Toronto and Hamilton. They are sneaking up, boys. I'm telling you, Hamilton's sneaking up. I saw Bo start off, and Bo Levi looked terrible, and then all of a sudden he came on, hit 9 straight.
I think Taylor Powell's their most effective quarterback.
Yeah, I like Taylor Powell too. But
I digress. It'll be interesting to see how those things shake out. I do want to mention this. Since you mentioned you're going to the lake, Chris, are you going to be doing any golfing? People getting an opportunity to golf, now into late October. It's outstanding. This is Scotswood Links, my good friends in Elm Creek, Manitoba. It's just like a 25-minute drive outside the perimeter, halfway between Winnipeg and Eli. Elm Creek, beautiful golf course. Scotswood Links. We are giving away a foursome pass with power cart right here on the pregame show. Look at that beautiful room they got for weddings, for events. Beautiful, expansive clubhouse they just built a couple years ago. They are going to be open through Sunday. You can book a tee time or you can win a foursome pass. We're going to give one away on the pregame show here, and we're going to give one away on the postgame show tomorrow night as well. It will be good into 2024 next golf season, as Sunday is their final day. But look at that. Absolutely gorgeous prairie meadow setting, they like to call it. Scotswoodlinks.com. Scotswood, as you see there, spelled SCOTS. WOOD, scotswoodlinks.com. I don't know how you want to give these away, Chris. What do you think?
That's a good question, man. Why don't people predict when you're getting married there? I think that's a great spot for you to get married. I mean, you're a young guy, you're a bachelor. I think you're looking to get engaged, and maybe you are engaged. I don't even know. I haven't seen you for 2 weeks, so maybe you are right now. But anyway, that's a good question. Maybe you'll come up with something because you're the man behind the scenes here. You know all the stuff.
Well, this is what I want. This is what I think we should do. Okay, if you want to win this foursome pass, you got to be on YouTube. You got to be subscribed. Okay. If you can, get on our Instagram as well. Tons of good Jet stuff there. You can find us on Instagram, bonfire.sports. Bonfire.sports on Instagram. You can find links to all this stuff on BonfireSports.ca, your podcast app, the YouTube, the Facebook, all that good stuff. But be sure to be subscribed. Be sure to be following all of those. Give a thumbs up in the live chat right now. If you're watching this afterwards, give a thumbs up as well. You can still do that, and leave a comment. And if you comment, you know what? Make sure you do all those things and then text the Bonfire hotline your name and your YouTube account, or like how I can recognize you. And if you're doing all those things and you text the hotline, we'll get you that pass. We'll give one winner on the pregame here right now, and one on the postgame game day after dark following Bombers Elks on Saturday night. What is the Bonfire hotline? Sorry, Chris.
You know what we should do next year, DB? I mean, we talked about this before.
Well, let me give out the phone number. Let me give out the phone number.
No, we should do. Okay, you get your phone number, but I'm saying we should do a show from there next year. Have a round of golf and do a show.
Yes.
All right, man.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Scotswood Links, Bonfire Sports. We'll make it happen. Just great people out there too. The Sisson family have done an outstanding job with that course. Really transformed it over the last number of years. So if you haven't been there in 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years, it's completely different. And again, that beautiful clubhouse. So be sure to check them out. The Bonfire Hotline, text 204-816-TIPS. That's 816-8477. Standard message rates apply, just like, texting your mama. Same deal. But be sure to do all those good things. Hit a thumbs up, leave a comment, and text the hotline with your name and your email address, and I'll be able to send them to you. So go do that right now. Should be fun. Okay, Chris, who is the M.O.P. of this Blue Bombers team? Is it Zach Collaros, who would be eligible if he comes out of Winnipeg, would be eligible to go up against probably Vernon Adams Jr. in the West, Chad Kelly in the East, and have a shot at winning a third straight M.O.P. in the CFL, something that really has never happened, maybe with Doug Flutie before. Or is it Brady Oliveira, who has just been Mr. Everything for the Blue Bombers, and one of those seasons he's putting together that is really going to be maybe number 2 all time by a Canadian tailback to John Cornish?
Yeah, I did a thing in Free Press, and I was kind of hemming and hawing about it because both of them have such incredible resumes going into the year.
That was a good piece by Taylor Allen.
Real good piece. It was really nice. And I mean, it's funny. I was leaning more at that particular time to Zach because I said he's the straw that stirs the drink, and he touches the ball every time. But then when you get back and you start looking at what Brady has done, the fact that he's got 1,400 yards, he's got 2 games yet, that's crazy. He's had 7 games over 100-plus yards rushing, number 1 in the CFL. 89-yard average, number 1 in the CFL. 37 runs over 10 yards, number 1 in the CFL. I mean, 6-point yard average. I mean, he's doing it all. Not only running the ball, but catching the ball. He's got great hands out of the backfield. He's got 4 touchdowns receiving. I don't know what more Brady Oliveira could really do besides donate some more dogs that he rescues up north, and that's where I give him the M.O.P. too for what he does outside of the football field. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. I can see him taking it. I know it's going to be tight because you're going to have certain voters who are going to always look at the quarterback. But I think when you look at the body of work that Brady Oliveira has done this year, man, it's really hard to overlook him.
Yeah.
And he's going to listen, even if he comes out of Winnipeg, just say he comes out M.O.P. Then he's going to have a tougher race, I think, with Vernon Adams, because Vernon Adams is going to, he's got like most yards he's ever had, 4,000 or something like that, maybe 5,000. He's going to be trying for. And then you got the Canadian. If he goes up a Canadian, he's going to go against. It's going to be that guy, Matthew Betts, because he's probably going to set a Canadian record for sacks. He's tied right now with, the guy that got Brent Johnson. And he's going to set a record. So how do you overlook that? And then it's the voters, right? Because the voters in BC are not going to say. Now, you're going to get some voters thinking about Brady, and you're always going to get guys, Zach. I also told you this last time we had this conversation. There is a mindset where they look and go, you know what, Zach's won it twice already. Let somebody else drink the Kool-Aid.
The fatigue.
I hate to say it. If the numbers were jump out at you and he was so ahead of everybody, I think it'd be automatic. Zach would be the guy.
I think it's also on that point that his season this year is not as good as it was last year. And is that even a fair assessment? I mean,
no, he's had a great year. It's hard to keep him. It's hard to when you start playing up here, and you're trying to better yourself year after year, and you're basically at the top of your game. It's really tough to beat what you did. But then again, you mentioned the guy who did it, and that was Doug Flutie, who I think he was 6-time most outstanding player. The guy was amazing. I mean, Doug Flutie, not only a great quarterback, one of the smartest guys ever played in the league. He just made us look stupid sometimes. He was just that good.
Yeah.
But having said that,
a guy of his age going back to the NFL, right?
And should have started that one game in San Diego, and they went with the moron and put him in. They lost the game because the coach, that's that mentality, quarterback's too small.
Oh, yeah.
And he got him into the damn playoffs. He got him, and they could have, don't get me started on that crap. I mean, that's, it pisses me off. But anyway, your point about Brady and Zach is a good point. Man, I tell you, if I had to vote right now, I think I'm kind of leaning. I hate to say it, I'm kind of leaning a little bit of the old number 20, Brady. Yep. I just think because he's done something that a lot of people haven't done.
So 4 voters in every CFL market, and the head coach also gets a vote. So 5 out of each market.
That's going to be interesting too.
I put my ballot in, as I've had the honor of doing for the last number of years, and I voted my M.O.P, Brady Oliveira.
Wow. See, and I'll be honest with you, it's not a bad, you can't go wrong with any one of those picks. But I think what like I say, his body of work is second to none. I mean, he's going to win the rushing title. He's probably going to end up with 1,600 yards. He's had a great, there you go. Good point, Ralph Campbell.
Never had a bad game.
He's had a great year. He's averaged over 100 yards every time he plays Edmonton. He's going against Edmonton, who gives up the most rush yards at 135 a game. Woo, baby. Come on, man.
Yeah. Jason Rempel wants the bonfire hats. I hear you. I'm throwing up all your comments here, Jason, because they're kind of giving me a kick. But there's the new bonfire logo. A little bit of hockey colors there. The 2 Jets blue colors.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. I like the way the B pops out. Yeah, it looks good, buddy.
But we're working on the hats.
3D.
Maybe Christmas time. We'll see. It's all coming up around the corner. I really struggled with the decision on who to vote for Blue Bombers' most outstanding player. And it's because the quarterback is such an important position. Yep. Zach Collaros is elite and has been elite. And he's had some games where he threw some picks. He's also had some games where he's taken some hellacious licks and been able to still perform and not miss any stretches of time. That's tough to do. Of course, you could say the same thing for Brady Oliveira, the wear and tear on the body. I know he's a much younger guy, but the wear and tear, the fatigue in the legs and the core muscles, to be a bell cow every down back like Brady Oliveira is really something to that weighed into things. But like Ralph Campbell mentioned there, watching live on Facebook, great comment, Ralph. I'll pull it up again. Brady never had a bad game. And when they needed Brady and the opposition knew Winnipeg was going to Brady, he still produced. And to me, that was outstanding. If you talked about most valuable player, I would say no doubt the quarterback is the most valuable player.
Absolutely. Stats Junkie does a great job, and that's a great point by Stats Junkie saying Brady M.O.P, Zach MVP. I think that's a really good because, Zach is the most valuable player to this team. There's no doubt about it. But the most outstanding player this year, as you mentioned, and you voted for, Brady Oliveira. I
did also think about, if Brady comes out of Winnipeg, if he does, definitely may not, but if he does, how does he stack up against a quarterback in Vernon Adams Jr.?
Well, that's the other thing, and let's just go like this. Yeah, Vernon Adams is going to get a lot of votes. Listen, he's going to get a lot of. He's had a great year. Let's not even kid yourself. He's 1 touchdown behind Zach right now. He's a number of yards ahead of Zach as far as the passing yardage. But the weirdest thing is, I think when you look at Edmonton, just think about the Elks right now. M.O.P is probably going to be Kevin Brown.
Yep,
another running back. That's who's going to come out of Edmonton for an M.O.P, in my opinion. But having said that, Vernon Adams is going to be, to me, they're pushing him. Well, listen to Rick Campbell today, the head coach of BC. He actually puts a point of saying M.O.P, Vernon Adams. So when the coaches start pumping you, they're going to get some attention. So, it's going to be tough. I think if Zach was going against him, boy, that's still going to be tough. I think that Vernon Adams, for what he's done to a team like BC, Bombers have been in the West Final, 3 years in a row? They're probably going to be third year in a row. Good chance to go to the Cup. BC wasn't, BC kind of had to come out of the ashes like a phoenix. And I think that what Vernon's done there, I think he's had an outstanding year. And I think that's in some people's mind is going to be something that maybe looks at them as M.O.P. But you're right. If it's Brady against them, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Because a lot of times people, it's like when we look at, who do you want for defense? I don't know. I'm looking at the Bombers. I don't know. Who are you going to go for defense? You had, what's his name? Demario Houston, who had 7 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, or 3 fumble recoveries. Yep. You got Dietrich Nichols, who's got 10 pass knockdown, doesn't have an interception, but they don't throw at him. So it's one of those things where no stats means nothing, but yet you know how studly he is.
Yep.
Will it be
Jackson
Willie?
Jeffcoat, who whenever Jackson Jeffcoat is in the lineup, the Bombers' defense is exemplary. He just brings something.
I think about it. He's missed a number of games. He's still got 7 sacks. He's got what do you got? I got how many tackles? He's got a whole bunch of tackles there too. I just think that he's really played well. He's one of those guys that really changes the dynamic of that Bomber defense. He rings a game better. I know they're double teaming Willie, and I know they're chipping Willie, and they're taking Willie out of the game. He still leads the leagues with pass knockdowns, which is crazy with 13. You don't see that every day from a defensive end. But yeah, I think defense is going to be tough. I don't know how they're going to pick it. Adam Bighill, is going to get votes just because Adam is always a stud. He always has great numbers. He's always around the ball. 72 tackles, 4 sacks. But I agree with you on that, Jeffcoat. But will the fact that he missed a number of games affect him?
Who do you think I voted for? You get two. You get 2 votes. You get a first vote and a second vote, and the second vote works as a tie break if
okay.
There's a discrepancy.
I'm gonna say you went with Jeffcoat as one of your votes.
I did not.
And I think you might. And I think you might have went with. You might have went with Willie. I don't know.
I did vote Willie Jefferson, most outstanding defensive player. And, I understand maybe he hasn't had the best stretch of games here in the home stretch, but if there was one player I would want healthy in every single game, it would be Willie Jefferson. Yeah. And my second vote, I didn't give it to Jeffcoat. I gave it to Dietrich Nichols because I think some defensive backs in the CFL, they deserve a little bit more shine on their name, a little bit more respect than they often get. Yeah.
We just talked about him too. The fact that he doesn't have any of that stats. He doesn't even have an interception this year.
Nope.
But they're not throwing at him. They're just not throwing at him. I mean, it's crazy how he shuts down the people he's playing against.
You mentioned Edmonton's. You mentioned Edmonton's most outstanding defensive player or most outstanding player would be Kevin Brown on offense. Yep. You could look at AC Leonard on defense. You could look at Lucius Purifoy as their dime backer and returner often. As one of their most outstanding player nominees. Some of those DBs deserve a little more respect.
I just think that when I look at, so Willie's got, 9 sacks, 19 tackles. You look at AC Leonard, 12 sacks, 44 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. He's got 2 receptions, 1 for a touchdown.
That's right.
He played short yard. And then let's flip the side. Jake Seresna, 12 sacks, 46 tackles. Mm-hmm. Like these guys are really impactful, not only getting the sacks, but a lot of tackles.
I'm glad you mentioned Seresna.
That's a thing that pops out at me. Yep. If you got 12 sacks, you got 2 tackles, it's like 12 plays to me. But the fact that they're such impactful making tackles, and the forced fumbles, and AC Leonard's been around for a while, and he's probably going to get his due. You know what? If I had to lean, I would probably say it's probably going to be him, or will it be Niles Morgan, who they really like? But having said that, he's missed a number of games.
Yeah.
So, that'll be my pick. Now, let's go and throw this out. Who do you got for rookie for Bombers?
To me, there was really only 2, maybe 3 players that I think would be in the running for it. Anthony Bennett, defensive end, has dressed in every game this season, I believe. Damian Jackson, the fullback, playing special teams, catching a pass here and there, kind of playing that Mike Miller role. Since Miller's been hurt. And then you have rookie punter, Jam Sheehan. I voted Damian Jackson and Sheehan as my second.
That's okay. You took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I would have went. I would have put Jamison number 1.
That was a tough one.
Just because I think what he's done, he's got 10 kicks or 9 kicks inside the 10-yard line. I like what Damien does. He's a guy that doesn't get a lot of notoriety, but I love where he comes from. I love his work ethic. I love the fact that he's an military man. I got a lot of love for those guys, man.
He's just a football player, right?
Well, I just love the guy like that. Listen, I mean, if you ever watch those shows on TV and see what these guys have to go through to be graduating from that,
as a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, you lay in the water and they try and break you. They actually try and break you.
Yeah.
So I mean, kudos to the guy. Hats off. Thank you, man. Thank you. I don't know about the rookie for Edmonton because they got so many bloody new guys every week. They're cutting six, bringing six. But let's talk about this then. Here's the one that I had a hard time with, and I don't get a vote. O-line, I had a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I had a real hard time too.
I'm leaning I'm leaning toward Jamarcus.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jamarcus has played really well. I like Patty Neufeld, though. Patty jumps out at me, and so does Chris Kolonkowski.
Mm-hmm.
I think underestimated. Now, I know Stanley Bryant's going to get some votes because Stanley's Stanley. But I think that if you watch those PFF or whatever, the graders, those guys have been showing up pretty high all the time. So it may be a time for Stanley to pass the ballot. I don't know. He's probably still going to get it because I see the fans voting, and they're voting for him because it's name recognition. And,
Sure.
But having said
I had some conversations, and I did a lot of thinking about it too. And I thought about Stanley and Jamarcus playing tackle, those really tough positions to play. Yeah. I thought about Pat Neufeld, of course, and Chris Kolonkowski. Jeff Gray, I just don't think is in that same class with the others. All due respect to the Winnipegger, but he has been very, very good, especially in the stretch, the final stretch here of the season. He's pushing guys around. He is he is what Chris Walby likes to call a horse. He's a real horse. He's a Clydesdale.
And he's downfield, which I love.
Pushing the cart. Yeah, and he loves going downfield. Absolutely. But I went a little bit off the board, and I picked Chris Kolonkowski as my most outstanding offensive lineman.
Not a bad choice.
You're the quarterback of that line. You're calling things.
Yeah, I think he's really coming to his own this year. I mean, he started a little bit last year. And then obviously with Couture going to BC, he's really taken over that center spot. Mm-hmm. I do like Patty. I think Patty's had a great year again.
Agreed.
Congratulations to Patty and his wife on the birth of their daughter. I think that was great too. So congrats to them for that. But yeah, that was a tough one for me, brother. And then what's the other one we have?
I'll mention too, Tui Ellie stepped in for Pat Neufeld in BC when Neufeld was having his child.
A baby,
and Tui had one play that stood out on the broadcast that was not a good one, and everybody questioning how Tui Ellie played. He graded out exceptionally in that game against BC. He was very, very good, as I expected him to be, as a lot of people expected him to be. Don't let one play paint the whole picture.
Yeah, but that's a problem with this. When you're an old lineman, when nobody talks about you, it's great. When they talk about you, it's not a good time. You can have you can grade out 90%, which is great, and have two plays that just, they're basically asterisks on your game. And people see those, and those are the ones, depending on the magnitude of that mistake. You get a quarterback getting killed, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, here we go. And they look at you. And that's like, no matter what you do the rest of the game, that's going to be against you. So, yeah, I like your choice there, DB. I think it's a good choice.
It's a tough one, though. Couple tough ones.
It's very tough. It's always tough. I know you can talk to the O-line coach, and they grade each of these players after every game. Each player gets graded.
I remember the days where it was tough choosing Blue Bombers award nominees because it was like, is Justin Medlock the most outstanding player on this team? It was tough.
Yeah.
And now it's tough for a different reason. Because you don't know.
Yeah, it's tough because you have so many choices. Yeah. You got a ton. It's like, what's the last one we got then? So we got the Canadian, I guess, eh?
Special teams.
Oh, special teams. Ooh.
Serge.
Yeah, I think Sergio is
consistent,
that's a thing. But
solid. Good.
I actually like what Nick Hallett did. 18 special teams tackles. I think he's done really well. I love the story about Tanner Callwalder, about his mother. With fighting cancer. I thought that was a great piece put out by Tate.
People out there, go to bluebombers.com and read some of the stuff. The piece on Buck Pierce, the piece on Tanner Cadwallader. Awesome stuff. This is the fight cancer game Saturday night at IG Field. And, while the hockey team is maybe having trouble filling the stands, the Blue Bombers, absolute opposite, hot ticket in town. Yeah. So too will be the West Final. I have no doubt that'll be sold out November 11th. But this is the final home game of the regular season. So, I expect the Madhouse to be rocking on Saturday.
It's weird you say that because obviously I'm going to the lake, so I have some tickets. So I had friends call me, and it's usually when it's the end of the year and it's Edmonton, everybody's going, I don't want to watch the game. I'll watch it. The Bombers are doing such a fantastic job of bringing fans in and making that a fun environment to be in. I know they got the pregame, they got the cheap beers, the hot dogs, and pop and stuff like that. They're really doing a good job, and they're filling the house every game. And you're right, 100%.
Winning helps.
I think they'll probably be sold out. And the West Final, definitely, it'll be sold out. It's as you call it, the Madhouse on, what do you call it, Madison?
Matheson. Chancellor Matheson Boulevard.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, or whatever it may be. I think it's Boulevard. I'm not sure. But not only will the West Final be a heck of a game, we expect Winnipeg to be hosting that game. But the Grey Cup, of course, the 110th Grey Cup will go live from Hamilton on Sunday, November 19th, 8 days after the West Final, because, of course, those playoff games have moved to the Saturday. But Sunday Grey Cup, as always, Bonfire Sports will be in the hammer. So whether the Bombers are there or not, we have got coverage coming from the 110th Grey Cup. Sure hope, I think, for everybody out there that the Bombers are in that game. And, I expect them to be, Chris. I really do. I think they're a better team than the BC Lions. I think in a neutral site game, I would always go to the Bombers. If BC finds a way to, host the West Final, maybe they have a shot at winning that game. But if Winnipeg hosts the West Final, I can't see Winnipeg losing. I can't.
No, and that's interesting. You bring up another point. I mean, let's throw this out there. Who's going to win between Calgary and Saskatchewan?
Oh, to get into the playoffs.
This is win or lose, do or die.
Saski's got the Argos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then and the Argos are like dressing AJ Ouellette, they're dressing Chad Kelly, they're bringing the guns because Toronto is out of buys, and they've been kind of coasting a little bit as of late to make sure guys are rested and ready. But they will have a bye the first week of the playoffs, and then who's Saski got week 21?
I don't know who they got. I know
they're on a bye. They're on a bye next week.
Yeah, so I think if Saskatchewan has one game, I think Calgary has two.
That's right. Calgary's got Winnipeg next week, and they're in BC.
And that might be it. And just think about that. If it comes down to that, where Calgary has to win and Bombers already clinched, you're going to see a lot of substitute players in that game in Calgary, much like they did a number of years ago when we lost the game in Calgary because we sat almost all our starters. So, it's going to be interesting when you see about that game. I think this game, I'm looking forward to. I'm anticipating a great game. I think Edmonton is. I hope they don't just, basically show up and just basically, got their bags packed. I remember we had a team. I won't mention who these guys were, but I know we were in a playoff situation once, and guys had their luggage packed already, and I was like, "What the hell? You can't do that, man. You got that's just such a downer." But yeah, I think that I'm looking forward to a real classic snot knocker. I think it'll be a good one.
Absolutely. Snot knocker. I love it.
Snot knocker, baby.
I don't know how Calgary wins in BC and then home to Winnipeg next week when, those two opponents are not only the class of the West Division amongst the class of the CFL, but have something to play for. So it looks like Saskatchewan will probably find a way into the playoffs, but that is a flawed football team. And I fully expect the GM and the head coach, they are in the final year of their contract. You could even say the final game of their contract, at least regular season game. I don't think those guys will be back next year. All due respect. I like Craig Dickinson a lot. I've had a lot of good interactions with him. Jeremy O'Day, I've never had a chance to meet or speak to, but they need change. They need change in Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Well, they need something that's going to happen. And when's the last time you've seen the Dickinson boys on the wrong side of the ledger? I mean, Calgary, obviously, with Dave and Greg. I mean, Calgary's been an exemplary team for a number of years, and they're having a bad year this year. But Saskatchewan is just, they just basically busted. They don't seem to have any discipline. I think they just can't. I mean, I think their offensive coordinator's got to go. I don't think he's very good. I hate to say that, but I mean, I don't know. I like their starting core. I like that Dolegala. I like him. But having said that, man, their scheme is really different. They can't figure out, do they want to play that Frankie Hickson or Jamal Morrow?
Can you imagine the emotional roller coaster when you go through your starting quarterback, who is a free agent acquisition, then you go to your second stringer, does some things, and then he gets hurt, and Mason Fine, and then you bring in Jake Dolegala, and nobody maybe really had huge expectations for him, but played well. Despite, okay, great, he plays well, but the emotional roller coaster you go through as a team prior to that is tough. They have talent. They just haven't been able to put it all together. And I think a lot of that goes on the coaching staff. So do expect changes there. Wanted to mention two more questions, Chris, before we get to your keys to the game, because that's what everyone came here. What's that?
I said, all righty.
Oh, all right. Oh, I didn't catch the accent.
I was like, remember Matthew McConaughey. All righty then. All right.
Oh, I thought that was more Matthew Dunnigan.
That'd be a twang. All righty. Up on through, you
Roy Shroud asked this question a couple times, and appreciate your patience, Roy. I hope you're still with us. Has the size of receivers in the CFL changed? I don't think so.
No.
Seems like the same size of guys to me. You've always had those Clarence Denmarks. You've always had those Chris Matthews. You've always had, the really, really small guys as well, like the Greg McRae's. So, no, I don't think so. But here's the big question, Chris. Andrea. Always great to see you, Andrea. Thanks for joining us as always. Bonfire OG. Did Kyle Walters sign an extension yet? Winnipeg Blue Bombers GM is in the final year of his contract. Mike O'Shea has an extension. Wade Miller ain't going anywhere. He's the third piece in that Canadian mafia that Dave Dickinson coined so infamously. The trio, the triumvirate, if you will, if I can throw some language out. Kyle Walters has no contract, Chris.
Yeah, that's
He's never
weird.
been like Mike O'Shea. Mike O'Shea said, I've always, played out the entirety of my contract and then I sign an extension. That has not been the case for Kyle Walters. I don't believe that he's been offered a contract.
That's a very interesting scenario for the way he's done and the things they've done together, those three with Miller, him, and O'Shea. I just can't believe he hasn't. Maybe you're right. Maybe wait until the end of the year. Listen, there'll be every team in the league that has an opening would be willing to grab Kyle Walters just because of the way he does things.
He'll have his choice, I think.
He builds veterans. He brings them on. So
great drafter.
I just
great
think
trader. Great
trader. Smart. But they have communication. Much like any player on a team, they communicate. You got O'Shea and you got Miller and you got Kyle on a sit down with whatever respective coach might be.
Ted Gavaya, Danny McManus.
Well, Danny Mac, I think, is gone. I think Danny Mac will be a GM somewhere. I know he's assistant GM here.
I think uneducatedly, I think Ted Gavaya will be the GM of the Blue Bombers next year.
It's funny you say that. I'm just going to say, because is that why they're holding, horses on Kyle Walters, not, giving him the money right now? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. I cannot even imagine that. A guy thinking to himself, and Kyle's a great guy, first off, too. Great family guy, got great kids. And the fact that he's going to be sitting after 3 straight finals, could be 3 straight Grey Cups, and he's sitting on
could be 4
broken glass waiting for the window to break.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it. But that's, I'm not smarter men than me know what they're doing, I guess. But I sure wouldn't want to sit in that kind of situation with that hanging on my shoulders.
Yep. I'll ask this question knowing you know the answer. You remember Brendan Taman?
Yes.
And do you remember where he went when he left Winnipeg?
He went to Ottawa, didn't he?
He went to Saskatchewan and he won a Grey Cup.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. I thought he went to Ottawa too, but I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
He went somewhere after that. I know that it's funny. It's not very, these guys go from the penthouse to the outhouse so quickly. It's hard to keep track of them all.
Yeah.
Not to say they're in the outhouse, but yeah.
Edmonton, Calgary, and BC do not need GMs. Okay. Montreal, I think, is going to stay with Gianni Machocha. Pinball Clemens signed an extension with the Toronto Argonauts. Sean Burke is in his 2nd or 3rd year. I don't think he's going anywhere from Ottawa. He's still.
Well, they've actually said he's staying. They gave him the vote of confidence.
Yeah.
Now maybe Bobby Dice. Well, it'll be interesting to see what he did do with him
as a head coach. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but I
I
mean,
don't think Kyle
they give.
Walters is going to look for a head coaching job. I think he's going to look for a
Well, no,
GM
and this
job. That's for
Scotty
sure.
Westman put the point up there. He says, "Do you see O'Shea getting double title?" No, not a chance.
Doesn't
Too
want to be
much on
GM.
your plate. It's just too much on your plate. And I remember we had, Cal Murphy was assistant, and he was the head GM and the head coach, and it just becomes too convoluted. It becomes, you just can't have. You have to separate the two. I think Dave Dickinson, too much on his plate. I think they were better when Johnny Huffnagel was not the president. Johnny Huffnagel was GM. And then Dave could just concentrate on coaching. It's too much to think about. I got to sign this guy, get rid of this guy.
With Saskatchewan, or pardon me, with Calgary though, and John Huffnagel going from GM and president to just president, and Dave Dickinson from just head coach to head coach and GM. I think that's more of just a shuffling of titles more than anything. I do think they're trying to give John Huffnagel a little bit less on his plate. And allow Dave Dickinson to find his heir apparent to be head coach and for him to become the eventual GM president as Huffnagel had been. But there's not going to be a change in any of those markets. So for Kyle Walters, he's looking, if his contract does expire and he hits the market this winter, and that is an if, where do you go?
Oh, that's Kyle Walters right there.
He's calling. He wants to join Bonfire Sports.
It's my dog.
You got Saskatchewan. You got maybe Hamilton. I don't know if that's going to happen. I would be very surprised if he didn't become the GM of the Rough Riders.
Danny, I apologize for the phone. It's actually my doc. I went for a hip X-ray the other day, and I bet he's calling now to say, "Get it done, boy. Get it done."
Well, I hope you're okay, Chris.
Yeah, I'm okay, man. But I'm getting old. I guess they're looking at that. So,
yeah, but anyway, you got a birthday coming up.
Yes, I do, man. Yes, I do.
It's a big one.
But that's okay.
It's a big one.
No, it's not a big. That doesn't matter. It's every day.
We'll talk about it later.
Every day on the right side of the ground is a good thing, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God willing, as they say. God willing.
God willing. God willing.
Well, and as people tune in here, God willing, for Chris Walby's keys to the game. What is critical for Winnipeg to accomplish to come away with a victory, secure that West Final hosting on November 11th, and give everybody in a capacity crowd at the Madhouse on Matheson Saturday night every dollar they've paid?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, this is based on BC winning, because my keys would change tomorrow if BC loses. But having said that, if they win, you got to have the killer instinct. I think the Bombers need to have that. Don't underestimate a team that has nothing to lose. And you know what? Play Brady ball. I love Brady ball. He's had 100 yards rushing against these guys in both games he played. They're running against the league's worst rush defense, so I think that's a plus right there. Defense, we've talked about this. Tre Ford is dangerous. He's a legit 4.4 40 guy, which means he's very fast. And I mean, you got to keep him in the pocket. But I think even more important is you got to stuff the run. I really do like this Kevin Brown running back. I think he's tough, and I think he fights for yards. I think that he's one of the best. And to me, he'll be the M.O.P. of Edmonton and the Elks this year. You got to stop him, force Tre to throw the football. And you know what? In special teams, just continue to do a good job on cover teams, because Edmonton has no return touchdowns this year. Let's keep it at that. And those are my keys for the day. And that's it, baby.
Do you remember the Edmonton Elks gaffe by the returner who didn't come out of the end zone, and then they gave up the point?
Yes.
CJ Sims, they released him today as they cut their practice roster down.
Wow. I had him down. I didn't know I was wondering who's going to return.
Well, that's something we didn't discuss, Chris, is the Blue Bombers practice roster as they released Carlton Agadosi, who people were really waiting for that opportunity to see him back and healthy again.
Hey, buddy.
He joined the Toronto Argonauts.
I told you that when we talked about it. I said the two guys, Abu Swarmy and Carlton Agadosi, I said they'll be picked up right away. And one got picked up by Toronto. And listen, he knows the offense, the Bombers' offense, which is great. Yes. But he's 6'6". You got a big receiver. One other thing I liked about him is, he goes to skies and gets a football. He might come back and bite the Bombers. The other guy, obviously, Swery, he's in Saskatchewan. He got picked up right away, too. So it's great to see those young men continuing their football. But, yeah.
So there's the Blue Bombers practice roster as it stands today. There is a receiver there, Ravi Alston, who has not dressed in any games, but we got to remember that's how Kenny Lawler became a Winnipeg Blue Bomber. Joined the practice roster late one season, peppered in to the lineup the next season, and then the following. His third year in the Canadian Football League really jumped off the charts. Miles Fox has been a practice roster DT for a long, long time in Winnipeg. I think it was week 3, week 4, maybe he signed after being cut from the BC Lions. There's Celestin Haba, who had some sacks early in the year. Probably somebody that will get a bigger role in 2024. Noah Hallett back again after just another rough injury ending, season-ending injury for him. But there he is on the practice roster, healthy once again. He's been hanging out with his brother Nick and the Blue Bombers organization all season, but back on the practice roster just this past week. Of course, global Solomane Karamoko, defensive back Desmond Lawrence, who started in the Grey Cup last year and to start this season when Winston Rose was hurt. The two Japanese globals, Tomoya Machino on the O-line, Les Maruo at linebacker. Tyreek McGee has seen a little bit of action, I believe, this year at defensive back. Drew Richmond, there's your heir apparent at tackle, whether it's for Stanley Bryant or Jamarcus Hardrick. And then 2023 draft pick, defensive lineman Tanner Schmeckel. Pardon me. There it goes, zooming in and out. Your injured list, Demario Houston, Dalton Schoen, both on the one game, so closer to a return, then farther away. Beeksma, likely done for the year. Darby, I think, is about halfway through his 6-game stint on the injured list. Shane Gauthier would be wrapping up his 6-game stint. Same too with Jeremy Murphy, if I believe. Mike Miller, I don't know what's happening with Mike Miller. I sure hope the Bombers are able to get him back. More valuable than just what he brings on the field. He's been around the team, though.
Yeah, he's been around the team. He's he's obviously going to be a coach. I think he'll be one of those guys that just transforms, hands in his shoulder pads for a coaching hat. That's what I think will happen.
Well, gosh dang it, Chris Walby. It's been a long time since you and I done this show. This was a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody for joining us live as well or afterwards. Hit up on your podcast app. You can leave a review there. Hit the comments. Thumbs up. Just do it right now. You want the Bombers to win? Hit that thumbs up. Get that good mojo flowing. And Chris, I know you're headed to the lake. You're going to watch a big game in BC with the Lions and the Stampeders playing Friday night, Saturday.
Yep.
After the game, you're going to be tuning into Game Day After Dark with me and Schnitzy, aren't you?
Oh, my God. Well, I want to see how a broadcast should be done. I'm taking notes, brother. I'm like, oh, man, that was good. He answered that question very politely. Oh, that's good. Look at the enunciation of that word. Woohoo! That mother is a smart son of a gun.
Well, have a great one, Chris. It's going to be a fun game.
All right, listen, DB, have a great one. Bombers go. I'll look forward to watching you guys on TV. It's going to be a nice weekend. I think we still got nice weather. Get out and enjoy it. Stay healthy. Stay happy. God bless. And I'm out, baby. I'm out. I got to get out.